Get started. Sure appreciate it, and we'll get started real quickly. I'll just say a little prayer to get us started. If y'all bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us be here today and do your work. Please help guide our thoughts and our actions to do the best for your service in all of Georgia. Blessed in your name, amen. All right, great. Well, thank you for coming to our first meeting of higher education. We're glad to be here. I've got some people I need to introduce real quick. If you've not been in 401 in the last couple of weeks, the name 40 Fun is truly appropriate because we've got some great folks in there. I just want to take a moment to introduce. So we've got like 4 interns, and poor Diana Brooks. Where's Diana? Is she behind me or she's high? She stepped out. You know, our aide there has got these 4 young people who are in our office, and she's just having fun and guiding them. So stand up when I call it. Casey, where you at? She's from Georgia State, and we've enjoyed her. Emily Anderson behind us, great. We also have Will Sizemore, football player at Reinhardt, and you can tell. But now what I did kind of tease them a minute ago. I said, so when we get started, we're just going to have y'all tell a little bit about your college experience. Why did they turn so red? I'll have to ask the folks from Georgia Tech, why did they turn red? I don't know. But we're going to have them talk at some point when we get through with this or on down the road. Curriculum? I don't know, but they all turned red and put their heads down. And we couldn't read their mind. But Diana came in. Of course, Diana Brooks is our leader in there. Abby Day's with us to help guide us just in case. And Jenna also. So we've just got a great bunch of folks that help us on this committee, and I sure appreciate it. New also is Bert Reeves, our vice chairman. We're glad to have him with us. And also, just take a few minutes. Amy Carter thought she might come by, but this summer, Amy Carter sponsored a tour for this committee in the Valdosta area. We had a great time, went to all the schools down there, made us great nameplates, probably set the bar for committee trips. It was just very much awesome. So we're going to hear a bill in just a few minutes. But if you look on the agenda, you know, something I thought when I had the fortune to do this at every meeting, we're going to spend a little bit of time learning about part of what we do. And I invited Chris Green, and Chris, you want to go ahead and come on up, who all knows our student finance guy. Chris is working on his master's degree right now, working hard to talk to you about 2 parts. If you look in your packet, you'll see a budget sheet. This one you'll see where, I don't want to steal any of his thunder, but you'll see the, where are we at on this? I know 44.15, the service cancelable loans, and then also for, is it on this one, Chris? For the National Guard?
Yes, sir. It's under the service cancelable loan.
So service also. So I wanted Chris to bring you up to date on what these are, amounts of money, how do you apply for them, where they're at. And so he's got some stuff. We're going to let him talk first. Cheers, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You want to go ahead and grab that. Is that the right one? Or is that 10?
Yes, sir.
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Chris Green, here representing the Georgia Student Finance Commission. Most Georgians are familiar with our agency through our administration of the HOPE scholarship and grant programs, as well as dual enrollment. But we also administer a variety of other programs. Most of these were designed to target different students and occupations, and so a variety of those we'll probably discuss throughout the next month or two. These range from recruiting some of our best students to our senior military college, University of North Georgia. These students go on to become leaders in the Georgia National Guard after graduation, to another program we administer to recruit engineers, to get students into the profession and make sure that we have engineering workforce in Georgia after graduation. Today, in the interest of time, visiting with the chairman, wanted to highlight 2 programs for you. The Georgia Veterinary Education Loan Repayment Program and our Student Access Loan Program. Those of you that may remember Dr. Gene Maddox served in the House about 2011 at the request of many livestock producers in the state, introduced legislation to address an ongoing problem. Many of our rural communities did not have access to a qualified veterinarian for the livestock producers. So this program was originally created in 2011, for the first time funded in FY17. It's administered really in partnership between our agency and the Georgia Department of Agriculture, specifically the State Veterinary Education Board. So essentially, you all have appropriated the money to our agency, and then this board is responsible for contracting with these qualified individuals. So essentially, the applicants agree to a contract to serve in a rural community, and that's defined in law, for a period of 12 months. Once they have met that service obligation, then we will pay up to $20,000 on their outstanding veterinary loan debt, whoever the lender may be, and so that one we refer to as a loan repayment program. Again, that item is under service cancelable loans. The sheet I'm referencing, I think you have, is page 263 of the governor's budget report. And that's $100,000 funded annually. The other program I'd like to highlight this afternoon is our student access loan. Many of you have asked me about this program before. It's a low interest, 1% fixed rate loan. Originally created during 2011, this is to help students that still have gap in their educational costs. So this is available to students at USG, TCSG, as well as our private independent colleges. Those students can be pursuing a certificate, diploma, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, different award amounts depending on where they're enrolled. So for a university system of Georgia schools, $4,000 maximum per term, but as low as $500. And so these students, as you know, with most of our programs, it's really a partnership between our agency and our post-secondary partners, particularly in the financial aid offices. So we require the schools to certify the need for these students, as we certainly want to make sure that borrowing responsibly and not more than they need for their educational costs. Additionally, with this program, you all have instructed us to make sure that Hope Scholars receive priority, so we do multiple selections throughout the year. And lastly, I meant to highlight this as well. Although this was designed as a low-interest loan program, we do offer a borrower benefit that allows service cancellation for borrowers who go into public service, so working for the state of Georgia, executive, judicial, legislative, working for a local board of education, as well as local county and city governments. There's also a service cancellation option available for teachers who teach in a STEM field. And so that is just two of the programs I wanted to highlight this afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any of our committee members have any questions for Chris? You want to say something else?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I should have added our website. Of course, outreach is a huge part of our mission and what we do. gafutures.org. If you want to share that with your constituents, anytime they ask you about college planning, yes, ma'am. www.gafutures.org. This is kind of our one-stop shop where students can go to plan, apply, and pay for college. Many of you know that our outreach team members are in your districts every day. We love to co-host an event with you at a high school or civic club. That's really our mission and our passion, making sure that students know that these resources are available.
Let's have a question or two myself. Just how many young people or students are taking advantage of the loan program, the low-interest loan program now?
Yes, sir. So I brought some numbers to share with you. So in 2017, we were able to serve a little over 5,000 students, lending out about $30 million.
So are there folks that you're turning down, or how is that working?
Yes, sir. And thank you for having that ongoing dialogue with our agency. At this time, we have been able to meet all of the students who are eligible and applied. I think that is a conversation we should have every year, because we certainly expect, with changes at the federal level, want to make sure that those funds are available. Now, as payments come back in, we are relending that principal money back into the pot. So even though the budget line item may be 27 million, hopefully we're lending out closer to 30 million. And we are certainly doing our best. And
Is it pretty much geographically distributed across the state, do you feel?
yes, sir. I'm sure we could put together some kind of a report, but we certainly have borrowers in every sector, public, private, technical school. Across the three entities, I'd imagine that an average loan amount for a student is about $4,500.
Okay. And has repayment been a issue? Well, you always hear about loan repayments being an issue. How about for this? What's your...
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. So loan repayment period on this loan is 15 years. Again, 1%. And certainly working with borrowers, of course, our number one responsibility is education. And so when a student signs a promissory note for one of these loans, they complete an online module with us, as well as receive financial aid counseling from the post-secondary institutions. And certainly want to encourage. One other thing I should mention, a unique part of this loan is we have something called a KIT payment, or a keep in touch payment. And so every month, just $10, we ask the students to pay back, trying to establish good borrower habits and make sure they understand that this is a loan and not a grant, and not to be confused with the Hope Scholarship, for example.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Rhonda? Go ahead. Use the microphone if you would, please.
How long do they have to work, either for the state or for a particular school district, in order to for their loan to be?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. So the service obligation varies by program. For example, University of North Georgia, the student agrees to serve 4 years as a student and then 4 years after graduation. For the service cancellation borrower benefit on the student access loan, I'd like to just share with you the form that we send to borrowers, and it should specify on there exactly how long. If it's a year for $1,000, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to get that for you.
Thank you. Ms. Joyce, I think, which number are you? 8?
Thank you. Chris, tell me a little bit more about this engineering scholarship I'm seeing on the list.
Yes, ma'am. So Mercer's engineering program, and you'll have to forgive me, that is one of the programs I'm less familiar with. But essentially, I believe it's a little over $1,000 award per semester, and those students are agreeing to serve in an engineering-related field after completion.
Only Mercer students.
Yes, ma'am. We also have another program that allows for partnerships. So some of our other post-secondary institutions have engineering programs, and there are students participating through those other institutions. And I believe there's about 5 to 7, and I'd be happy to get that list for you.
I'd like to.
Yes, ma'am, certainly.
Chairman Knight.
Thank you. Going back to some of these loans that you've got provisions in for, for certain positions or sectors, if they go in there, the loans can be cancelable. You had mentioned go back to the one where you were talking about government and other positions. Tell me more about that. I know that the General Assembly has made a very conscientious effort to look out into, across Georgia and the industry and areas where economically we really have a shortage of skilled or educated, Georgians to come in and fill roles. But I was curious about the government part. Are we having shortages in that area of government worker? Tell me a little bit more there.
Thank you for the question. So we define public service for the purposes of that student access loan, and specifically the borrower benefit of service cancellation. I believe we've taken that definition from federal Title IX, what constitutes public service. To provide you with utilization, I know we could provide how many of our borrowers were able to cancel the loan because of service through one of those entities, whether it's through teaching or through some arm of government. I do not know off the top of my head, and because that program was created in 2011, I'd have to get back to you on how long public service has been defined as allowing state government. And
that would be interesting, because I know, again, we as a policy from the General Assembly have sought to incentivize people to go get a skill or an education in particular areas. So, I want to make sure we're in keeping with that, we need to make sure that we're not incentivizing people to go where maybe the need is not there, or we have an the capacity is already there. We need to make sure we're focusing our resources where, the holes are, if you will.
Absolutely, thank you. I will follow up to find out how many students are taking advantage of those options, and if there are opportunities for us to clarify with you, either through our regulations or through the law, which meet that burden. We'd certainly look forward to having that conversation with you.
Anyone else? Chairman Dickey, over here.
I got a question. Maybe Chris, thank you. It might not be you. I see a Hope GED grant. I get a lot of questions in my district about costs for people going back and getting their GEDs and taking the test, and it's something I really realize here I'm sitting don't know about. So maybe that's something for a technical college that teach those courses more than. But could you tell me what this grant is and how y'all get involved with GED costs?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question, Chairman Dickey. So for the Hope GED grant, has been around since Hope's inception in '93. But for students that go to get their GED, they get a one-time voucher in the mail, $500. Again, fully funded from the lottery program, part of the Hope umbrella. They receive that voucher, $500, upon completion of that GED, and then it expires 2 years from when the GED is awarded, but they can go and use it at any eligible institution, USG, TCSG, or a private independent.
So that's money used after they get out their GED.
Yes, sir.
So they have to okay.
Excuse me. Yes, sir. That's after they.
For additional education.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it's not true, Chairman Dickey. I think of most of the technical colleges, somebody around here might answer this, have,
Yeah.
you want to come on up?
Our adult education program covers the cost of the GED courses, and that's usually federal funds through our WIOA grant.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil. Also, if you would, talk about the service countable loans. That's what we're going to hear in just a minute, specifically the National Guard one. It's 44.15.
Yes, sir. So in the budget line item we discussed earlier, $100,000 continuing to go for the large
Okay,
food
this
animal.
we're talking. This is the Georgia National Guard part.
Yes, sir. So the rest of that line item
Oh,
is
okay.
going towards that program.
Got it.
Georgia National Guard Service Cancelable Loan Program. Do have some colleagues here from Defense who I'd like to introduce you to and can speak a lot more to the purpose of the bill. But essentially it's full tuition at publics, set dollar amount at privates. As long as the student remains in good standing with the National Guard, their service pays off that loan. It's discharged. And
Right.
so I know that's what you all are hearing a little bit more about today. And
Good deal. Anybody got any other questions for our student finance fella? None.
Thank you, Mr.
Chris.
Chairman.
We
Thank
sure
you, committee.
appreciate you always.
yes, sir.
And he's a great resource, committee, if you have a question at home. You can call him if they're mad at you. He's awesome. Because he can answer their questions. I just really recommend him. Okay, we'll take a look at a bill here right now. We're going to hear it, have a vote on it a little bit by Representative Belton. If you'll come on up to the seat, we'll let you present the bill and have the committee ask you questions. And then I think you have some people that you'd like to speak after.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate the time of the committee. And as you probably know, I'm Chairman of Military Affairs. I want you to know that your universities are doing a great job of being military friendly. And I can talk about that later on if you want me to, or I can entertain questions about that. But in general, you all doing a great job being military friendly, and it helps us a lot in my efforts. The bill I'm bringing to you today is House Bill 700, Lima Charlie 440636. It's a recruitment and retention tool for the National Guard to help gain more National Guard people and also retain them. Back when I was a young man, the National Guard did not do a lot of wars. We were always getting ready for go fight Russia, and we never fought Russia, which is a great thing. But nowadays, the National Guard is fighting almost all the time. Believe it or not, the National Guard and reserves are fighting about a quarter of the time. A quarter of the troops are over there right now. in the desert are National Guard or Reserve, 1/4. So it's really amazing how much the National Guard is doing. We have the 5th largest National Guard in America. It's a very, very healthy, vibrant group, and they do a lot of stuff. And one of the things they try to do is to keep the people you have. The National Guard in general is actually the soldiers and airmen are more experienced than the regular folks just because they've been around longer. What we're trying to do in this bill is threefold. One is to add graduate level work to National Guard service cancelable loan programs. There's already a National Guard service cancelable loan program. We're trying to add graduate level work to that. Try and clean up some language in all National Guard service cancelable loans and add a 2-year requirement to serve the National Guard. About 228 people are using cancelable loans right now in the National Guard, and by adding the graduate level portion of this, we think we're going to add about 50 more per year or so. And I would note that, as Mr. Green said, that the governor has put about $750,000 in the budget for this money. So there is money in the budget for this program. If you look at line 18, basically we're adding eligible post-secondary institution and to this code. We're adding in line 23 and 22. We want the soldiers and airmen to obviously apply for a FAFSA just like any other people would do when you go to any university. Lines 28 through 31 talks about the fact that we're going to, it shall not exceed the actual tuition. This, with the other grants and scholarships and tuition assistance from the VA, was not going to exceed the actual tuition for a regular undergraduate in-state tuition. So we're not going to be paying people to make money while they're doing their studies, but try to meet the level of in-state tuition undergraduate. In line 36 is change it to 5 academic years to 120 semester hours. Line 38, we're talking about adding graduate. So in other words, before it was baccalaureate, it would discontinue after the baccalaureate degree has been done. Now we're changing it to graduate work. So you can have this loan is up until the fact that you've had a graduate degree, not a baccalaureate degree. You can do baccalaureate or graduate. We're adding the graduate part. Lines 42 through 48 is basically saying that right now that there is no requirement to be in good standing. What good standing means in the National Guard to do this. So we're saying that if you're not in good standing with the National Guard, then we're not going to be paying your service cancelable loan. So the soldier or the airman has to be doing the right things with the military, but before we're going to pay the loan. And in lines 53 to 56, we're saying that after the service cancelable loan has been granted, that person needs to serve 2 years in the National Guard. This is very common. When I was a Navy pilot, after I got my wings, I owed the military 5 years. And nowadays it's 10 years that you owe the military. So we're saying that after this service cancelable loan, we've given you money for the graduate degree, you're going to owe another 2 years of service to the National Guard. And that is basically the bill. Do you have any questions, Mr. Chairman?
For my committee members, Chairman Dickey.
Thank you, Mr. Belton, and I appreciate your service to our country too.
Thanks, sir.
And I know you're very passionate about the recruitment and retention of military in our state and retaining those people. But it just could you speak to the financial need for this scholarship, for these scholarships? I mean, we got lots of needs that we just heard about for citizens of the state of Georgia or young people who cannot afford college. Could you speak to the needs of our these Guard members who they're older, normally have jobs in the private sector as well, right?
Yes, sir.
So I just want to try to gauge the needs with the cost.
Yes, sir. If you don't mind, I'm going to let Colonel Joe Farrar speak to that very briefly, and then I'll answer your question as well.
We'll let him get it on in a minute. I
Okay.
like to keep you here, and then
Okay,
we'll
that's fine.
bring in.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Basically, in order to advance in the military, you have to get advanced degrees. No longer is a time when you can be a knuckle dragger and make command chief. You have to, especially officers, have to have a master's degree to become a lieutenant colonel, probably even a major nowadays. More and more, the military is very, very high tech and very educated, and so you need to complete these degrees in order to advance. And you're right; they do have jobs, but these jobs are not high paying jobs. The military does not make a lot of money, especially the lower ranks. Most, believe it or not, E5 and below, if you're married, you're on food stamps. It's hard to believe, but that's reality. Now, it's true that the officers make a little bit more, but it's not a lot more. What I would say is if we want to keep good soldiers and good airmen in the field, we need to. It really helps them if we'll help them pay some of their college education. That's what I would say. And one more thing, speaking of Robins Air Force Base, 100% of the J-STAR mission is done by National Guardsmen. It's amazing. We couldn't do that mission at all if it wasn't for the National Guard. And in order to keep those pilots, especially in the Guard, it really helps if you help their education along.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think is right here. Okay, you are which one? Seven.
Thank you, Representative Belton. Just a couple quick questions. First, I may be the least educated in the room on this, but on line 15, you marked out residents of Georgia, and it is simply eligible members of the Georgia National Guard. Is that to imply that there are non-Georgia resident members of the Georgia National Guard?
That's right.
So there can be a non-resident member of the Georgia National Guard who would receive Georgia appropriated funds to cancel a loan for their service to Georgia
And we can
National Guard.
change that, but that's how the law reads right now. Yes, sir.
Okay. Second question, just out of curiosity, line 54, you talk about canceling the loan for a period of 2 years of service. Is that 2 years of consecutive service? Is there any kind of, hey, you've got 10 years to serve too kind of thing, or?
My understanding is after it'd be 2 years of consecutive service. That's right.
Immediately
from
upon.
exactly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Representative Belton, and
Thank
thank
you,
you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Just following up on Representative Dubnik's question, so maybe your next speaker can answer this. I think they just raised some curiosity in our Georgia National Guard. How many are non-Georgians? Is that a common thing for people to be in
It's a
other
very small
states?
minority, but there are some non-Georgians. I mean, especially pilots. You know, I know a lot of pilots would be a National Guardsman in Colorado or something because of the airplane they fly is based in Colorado, not based in Georgia or whatever. Typically, I was a reservist down in Charleston, South Carolina for a while, even though I was living in Georgia, because the airplane I flew was in South Carolina. So it's not. I bet it's less than 5%, but it. Yes, sir.
You'll go. So you're 5.
Is that residency more though? I mean, it's where you're based. It's not necessarily where you reside. I know from a pilot's perspective, even in the commercial sector, you know, we have a lot of pilots that are live in Georgia, but their base may be in Tennessee or Florida, or I even have a good friend that flies out of Alaska. That's the base. So I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes, sir.
Most of these guard, you know, the reserve and the folks are probably actually residing in Georgia, but for I guess official purposes, they are based, or their plane is based out of maybe another state.
Yes, sir.
And I'll remind folks that you fly on a plane probably quicker from, you know, Georgia to another state than you probably can from most places in Georgia to Atlanta.
Right. I was a reservist for a long time, flying with Delta at the same time, and oftentimes you get to L.A. quicker than you get to, you know, Raleigh or something, or Fayetteville, North Carolina, or New Bern for sure. Where a lot of those North Carolina bases are. I'll also add that I don't know the numbers on this, and Colonel Ferraro can tell you better, but for every soldier we get in National Guard, we're getting a lot of money from the feds for each one. It's a bonus. I mean, I think it's a 3-to-1 bonus. Every soldier we have to pay in Georgia, we're getting a 3-to-1 bonus from the feds. It's actually a money making concept. If we get more and more folks from Alabama to be in the Georgia National Guard, that's money for Georgia. So even though we are in this particular case paying for a guy from Alabama, I guarantee we're making a lot of money off that guy. Just if you went to dimes and dollars and cents.
Any other committee members, Ms. Rhonda?
Do they have to get a particular degree, or is it related to what they're working on?
I've been asked this question before, and it's a great question, Representative Bruno. But no, they do not. Basically, it's they're trying to get degrees in order to advance in their career. And what happens if they don't advance in the career? Well, they get out, or they're forced out. So at one point in my career, I was forced out because I didn't make the next grade. So I would be flying with them right now if I had not. So this is it really is for retention, so that we keep our best people. But they do not. Generally, the Air Force and the Army does not require a specific degree. Some are better than others, obviously, but in general, it's management degrees we're talking about.
Anyone else? I'd just like to follow up when the general. I'd love to know, following up on your question, what degrees do they normally pick? Now, who's your guest? Don't get up yet. Sit down. Now you got to introduce your guest.
It's Colonel Joe Ferraro from the National Guard.
Colonel, would you please come on up? We'd love to hear from you. Again, as Chairman Dickey said, thank you for your service. We're glad you're with the Higher Education Committee. We'd love to hear your comments on House Bill 700.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for inviting us here today to speak to this. I am Joe Ferraro. I'm a retired Air Force colonel. I serve right now as the Deputy Adjutant General for the state of Georgia, along with General Joe Girard and General Randall Simmons and General Jesse Simmons, who command our Army and Air National Guards. And appreciate having a chance to talk to you about this. So the details of the bill have been explained, but I've picked up on the questions, and I'll just try to respond to those kind of in order.
Thank you.
So we were hoping to add the non-Georgia resident eligibility. They would be going to school in Georgia at a Georgia school. They would not be going to another state school on our dime. The reason that we wanted to add that is we are surrounded by states that have similar eligibility. Alabama, for example, just recently, last session over there, passed an education bill and funded it with about $5.4 million, as I recall. And these other states, we're losing recruits from Georgia to Alabama to Florida. Florida, I think they have about a $4 million program over there. We lose, and this is pretty much affects our border counties. I mean, once you get away from the border counties, we're pretty solid, but as far as competition with other states goes. But on the border counties, if the kid goes, well, I'll go to school, over on the other side of the border instead of Columbus State University because they'll pay for it, we lose that kid. Tennessee also passed a similar bill that expands and funded it with about $9 million. South Carolina and North Carolina both have similar bills. So yes, we want to steal good people from Alabama and Tennessee and Florida, get them to come to school in Georgia, join the Georgia National Guard, come here and become a citizen. They may only actually be non-resident students for, a little while before they have been here. I don't know how long they have to be here, but a year or two, whatever it is. We intend on them coming and becoming a productive long-term member of the Georgia National Guard and adding to Georgia's National Guard strength. So that's why that was added in about the non-resident, because we are kind of in competition with our neighbors in that regard. Let's see, the number, I think I heard early in the conversation, maybe when Chris was speaking about the number of guardsmen who are deployed. We have now, for about the last 2 or 3 years, had consistently about 500 Air and Army Guardsmen deployed at any one time. That cycles up and down. We've had some really big deployments. Probably the last one is, I think, maybe 09, 10, 11, 12, about 2010, 2011, where the 48th Brigade last deployed. And they're getting ready to deploy again. So our number is going to spike later this year. We're going to have 3,000 Georgians back in Afghanistan. Okay, so it's a consistent, constant requirement. And it's been going on since the late 90s, really. I mean, 01 certainly picked it up, but we've been deploying Guardsmen constantly overseas since 98 and 99. I think one of the last questions too was, what is the ratio of state dollars to federal dollars kind of overall in operating the Georgia National Guard? Our state budget is around $11 million. That helps pay for the operation of armories and so forth, plus a couple of other federally supported education programs that we run that deal with Title I fifth graders. We try to get them excited about science, technology, engineering, and math with a STAR-based program. And so, bring them in, run them through that for a week. They do all kinds of great things. We get some money for that. The state actually doesn't put any money into that. That's all federal. We also run a Youth Challenge Academy program that's graduated almost 16,000 Georgians who are high school dropouts. So that's part of the $11 million. But we get about $600 million in federal money that comes into the state of Georgia to support the Georgia National Guard, Army and Air. So it's about, it's a little bit over a 50 to 1 ratio of federal dollars to state dollars. The education part, so we are surrounded by states that have very robust education programs and scholarship programs for their guardsmen. We do lose people to those states. We don't like that. We want to keep the good folks here and do that. There's been a bill or a scholarship program in place for quite some time, but it's been unfunded quite often as well. We appreciate that the funding has come back. This is an opportunity for us to become competitive with our neighboring states. So also, I guess one of the questions I think maybe, sir, that you asked about the kind of the background of our guardsmen and all that, we do get some people that come in off active duty, so they may have a little bit of more age on them, a little experience on them. I'll tell you, that's really getting to be less the case these days, because I talked to one of my former colleagues downstairs. She works in the Judiciary Committee, and her son deployed with the Army 5 times, and he got out. Got a wife and a kid. He got out, and I said, well, has he thought about joining the Guard? She goes, no, he has not thought about joining the Guard, because it's like, I just deployed 5 times for the active duty. Now I'm going to join the Guard and deploy again this fall to Afghanistan. I've hit my limit,
Sure.
So we actually are out looking for younger folks. We're looking for the 18, 19, 20-year-olds who are just getting a start, and we look at this as not only recruiting them into us showing some support to them, and that we believe in them, and that we want them, but we also do see it that it builds their loyalty back to us, that we help them out. They're going to stay with us for the long haul, and they're going to be good, experienced soldiers and airmen going forward for years. And because about 80% of our guardsmen are part-timers, that's why I was a part-timer for most of my career, that we feel this is a way to help advance not only the National Guard, but to advance Georgia by, hey, if you want an IT degree, we'll help you get an IT degree. It's going to help the Guard, but it's going to help you on your civilian job as well, because 80% of our folks are part-timers who come to do the drill, come to do their annual training, and then deploy to Afghanistan for a year, every 3 or 4 years. So we're looking at kind of building loyalty both ways. We would like to add in that 2-year requirement. Right now, they have to be in good standing for the semester they're in school. So the day after they get done with that semester, they could, we don't have a lot of problem with this, but they could theoretically go AWOL the next day and well, you were in good standing when you were in school, and so we'll pay for it. We want them to, be tied to us for a couple years after that to just make sure that we're getting your money's worth out
Absolutely.
of the service from these soldiers and airmen. I think I kind of touched the questions I heard. If there are any other ones, I'd be happy to answer
Does our
them.
committee have questions for the colonel? I just had one. You answered the question 80%. I was curious. I had written down here, the percentage of, part-time. And just go back to what Chairman Knight was talking about, just real quickly on what degrees they're after. I mean, why is there no you're kind of focusing towards certain degrees? You're not.
No.
It could be anything.
Yes, they could get anything. Well, because 80% of our folks are part-time, and even on active duty, I'll tell you, the active duty education benefits, the VA education benefits, and active duty has something called tuition assistance as well. They don't tie it. It's like, well, we'll pay for you to get an engineering degree. We'll pay for you to get a physics degree or whatever. They don't do that on those programs. They have some other ones that are more specialized, but on those programs, it's not like that.
Okay.
The overall thought is that if we're educating you, you're going to become a better thinker, you're going to become a better planner, you're going to become a better overall person, soldier, airman. So you pick something you enjoy doing, and we'll support that because we see overall a good benefit coming out of that. And again, the other thing is in our situation, we've got so many folks that are part-time that if we can build loyalty on their part by helping them, and we recruit them into us, but then we show some loyalty to them, and they can use that education to benefit their civilian career, we are better off if they become a higher level welder, whatever, or a CIO. We've got guys who are CIOs in pretty good sized companies, but if they go out and do that, they bring that skill back into the National Guard too. And so we just look at it as kind of, we don't want to micromanage their decisions, but if it's useful to us, and it has been, we look at it as a beneficial thing.
And just to follow up with Representative's question, so the states that join us that you described, they have the similar non-resident in their bills too.
Yeah, yes, many of them do. I won't say that every one of them does. I don't recall that every one of them does, but some goodly number of them do. I can get you the details on that.
We're just curious. I want to make sure we answered your question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Colonel.
You're
I
very
see any
welcome.
lights flashing. We'll put Representative Belton back
Okay.
in the seat
All
there.
righty.
His foot's twitching down there.
Back in the hot seat.
What's the? Well, I usually say this. What's the will of the committee? Do we have a motion to move this, or what? Gonna talk about it some more? Or what?
I move do pass.
We have a second.
Second.
Second. We got a second. Any discussion? Any more? Somebody think of a hard question for Representative Belton. You got, oh, you got to get that microphone on here. All right.
There it goes.
What does North Carolina do similar to this?
I do not specifically know what but I do know they have a very robust program as well. I do not know specifically what they do on this.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, those all in favor, send this bill on to rules. Vote aye. Aye. Any opposition? You're on your way.
Thank you very much, Mr.
You
Chairman.
make sure you go by rules and fill out his form.
Yes, sir, I will.
That adjourns our committee meeting. Thank y'all for being here.
Could I take 5 seconds and tell you about the military-friendly bills, military-friendly awards y'all have won?
Okay,
Would
hang
you like
on,
to hear that
committee.
for about
Hang
2
on,
minutes?
wait. All right, if y'all just hang on just a minute, Representative Belton would
I
like
don't want to take too much of your time, but I
There's
do
like-
want you to know. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do want to compliment again the universities for being military-friendly. We have 8 universities in the top 100: Armstrong, Georgia State, Augusta University, University of Georgia, Kennesaw State, North Georgia, Coastal Pine, and Georgia Southern. again, top 100 for being military friendly. The technical school is almost even better. Savannah Tech, #1 in the nation for 2 years in a row. Gwinnett Tech, #4 in the nation. Wiregrass, like #7. Central Georgia. And not to be left out, Georgia Tech just got $1 billion project for missile technology over 10 years. That's real
And
money.
look at her grin back there.
And they also do a very, very good job of on-job training program in Savannah. And I'm not describing it correctly, but it's an apprenticeship for veterans where like 100% of the people who join get a job. It's really amazing what they do. And it's not just the fact that we're training military, that's all great, but these programs really help prevent suicides. You know, it's hard to believe, but every day in America, 22 vets kill themselves. And these programs, if they go through one of these programs, they're not going to do that. And that's why this is so important. It really saves lives. So thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman.
Just hang on, just sit right there. We got two other things in my haste. Representative Dubnik has something he'd like to say. 7.
So I bring a message from the Senate Higher Ed Committee where I sat yesterday, and they allowed me to go first, and in exchange for that I had to promise to come back to this committee and say that they are somewhat decent people and we're very accommodating. So I promised to say at least something nice, and that's the best I can come up with.
Okay, well, great. Well, we'll see the senator soon in here, and we'll be treating him very nice too. Thank you. That adjourns our meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
y'all.